Hey there, Power Platform enthusiasts. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Steph, that's Superfloof, and today we're diving into a topic that was requested by viewers like you. 2 different ways to mark a task as complete in PowerApps. First, we're going to look at how to use Patch to mark tasks as complete right within the Power App. And then we're going to switch gears and show you how to use Teams adaptive cards to do the same thing from within Microsoft Teams. Both methods have their own advantages, and I'm thrilled to show you step by step how they both work. Whether you want to keep everything within your Power App or leverage Teams for notifications and updates, we've got you covered. Stick around, because by the end of the video, you'll be able to decide which method works best for you, maybe even both. If you're enjoying the content, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Also, thanks to everyone who requested this video. It's your feedback that helps drive this channel forward. Let's jump in. Let's start with the button in the app. Here we have our flight deck submissions. You can go back and look at my previous videos for all the previous parts of how we've built this from the start. Let's go into one of our records here. And if we go into the Approval Status tab, now we have a button here at the top. Now, when you click on a button like this where you're making a change, I always like to use a pop-up to verify and force the users to click something to confirm that they're actually doing what they clicked on. You don't want someone claiming that they're catwalked on their keyboard, which mine does all the time. So this gives us a plausible deniability. Are you ready to mark it as complete? We have an option here to add some comments. And if they say yes, complete, we do a patch statement. And if we say no, not yet, it resets everything to default. Now the second method we have is here within Teams. So we're leveraging Teams adaptive cards. We have a card that comes in and waits for a response, leveraging Power Automate. We have the option to click on View Details for this item. This could take us with deep linking right into the app. You can look at one of my previous videos for deep linking. But from here, we can mark it as complete, add our comments which are required, and then mark it as complete. And you see here, once that you have marked it as complete, the actual card changes. So if you have multiple people watching this channel, you can see who's done the work and who still has outstanding. Let's get started with the button first with a patch statement, and then we'll build the adaptive card second. Just a quick review, we're leveraging modern tabs with containers to give us the sections that we want to break out the content to make it more consumable for our users. So within Approval Status, we have a container that has then horizontal containers for these 2 sections. And then within the horizontal container, I have a container to hold the form and the button. This form is set to a view status, so you can't actually have the button within the form or else you wouldn't be able to click on it. So we have the button floating above the form, but still leveraging the form's X and Y's to make it responsive so that it stays within its container area. So the X is leveraging the form approval's width minus its own width, minus 20 to give it the padding. And then the Y, we're leveraging the data card value, this guy right here is Y, to make it match. Now, when we click on this button, what happens? If we look at the onSelect statement for the button, we are setting a variable var complete, and then we're resetting this text comments button. Now, text comments field. Now, what does that mean? Well, let's click on the button, and it brings up our pop-up. Now we're leveraging a container, and we see it right here on the left, a container pop-up with a container in it for the organization that's going to have this first, and then this, and then this, and then this. It's a lazy person's way of making apps quickly. Because all of the formatting and all the layout is already done for us, we just have to slap the variables or the icons in there, and it organizes it all for us. So when we click the button to mark as complete, it's setting a variable var complete as false, which is showing us the pop-up. If we look at this container, the container pop-up, and we go to the visible property, it's only shown if var complete is true. And if we click on it here, you can see that it's true. Now, if I click this X here, what are we doing? We're setting the var complete to false, and we're resetting this text field. Same thing happening if we click the not yet button. However, here's where the magic comes in. Let's look at the patch statement on the yes complete. So we're patching to our data source, which for my case is a SharePoint list. Watch the previous video on how that's set up. And we're looking up that list against the ID of this record. We're setting the status to complete. We're capturing the user's full name. And because there could be 4 John Does in your organization, we're capturing their user email just to make sure that we have the right person. And then we're putting some text in there. Mark this item as complete on, and then we're formatting a date. And if they haven't put comments in there, if they have put comments in, we're adding some text with the following comments and the comments, and then a period. If not, we're just putting a period. There's no reason to say with the following comments if they had no comments. Now, because I always like to give users feedback, right? We want to see if there's an error. We want to see if it was successful. Now we have if the errors are empty, not if empty errors. So if there are errors, then show us the errors for 5,000 milliseconds. If it was successful, give them the feedback completed successfully with a success notification type, and then we navigate them back to the main screen. We set the var complete, the pop-up visible, to false, and we're setting this item to blank. Now we're going to build all this together. We'll go over it all together, so don't worry about it. I will put this in the comments down below. Now let's look at how this looks once it's been completed. If we go back here and we look at one that has been complete, right here, you can see final status, the user, that's me, my name, mark this item as complete on the date with the following comments, comment. I wasn't feeling very creative. You see the buttons not showing. I forgot to mention one other little key factor here. This button's container, if we scroll back down to the container for the button, or actually the button itself, not the container for the button itself is only visible when the status is set to approved. So this one is set to approve. If we go back to any other one that's in a various other state, we have submitted, no button because it hasn't gone through its approval stages yet. Here we are in our working version of the Flight Deck Submissions app. So we have the container, the floating container within the horizontal container, and we're going to add a button. So we're going to go up here to the Insert menu, and we're going to add a modern button. And I'm just going to move it off to the side. Then the nice thing about modern buttons is we have the option to add icons within the button. So I'm going to add a check mark. I could have the icon before, we could have the icon after, all sorts of different options. We're going to say mark is complete. And I'm going to make the width 175, give us a little bit more working room. Now, you see how it went off the screen, and if we play the app, it is covering over the status section. Let's make this responsive so that it floats with the app as we want. So I could just stick it here and it looks right, but it may not in live time. So what we're going to do is I'm going to grab this data card value name. I'm going to go back to my button and I'm going to set the Y to equal that data card's Y. So you can see it color-coded it green and shows me in the app itself that it's green. And then the X, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to leverage the form approvals, and I'm going to take its width, right? So then it's going to pop it off the screen. I'm going to minus the self.width, and this is just a convention that I've found works really well. So I'm taking out its width, then I'm minusing 20 because that looks good to me. So there we have the button. Now if we play it, you see how it's going to float with the app. We're getting responsive. We're building our apps to be future-proofed, which is exactly what we want. The next thing that we want to do here is set the visible property. Now, if I click on this, look at the visible for this button. It's currently set to true. That's not really what we want. We only want it to show as true when this value equals approved. So this current record is set to approved, so we see it. Now, if we go back to the main screen and select one that isn't approved, I like to trust but verify, button's not there. First rule of SharePoint, first rule of PowerApps, don't panic. It's still there, but it's working like we wanted it to. So let's go back into our approved. Now, the next thing that we have to do is create that pop-up. So when someone selects this button, what do we want to have happen? Well, if I select on advanced here and go to on. Now, if I hit the advanced and we go to on select, we're setting a variable to complete, var complete to true. Now if I double click on the variable name right now, it's set to blank. If I hold down the Alt key on my keyboard and I hit mark is complete and we come back up here, now it's set to true. And so we know that the pop-up will show up. Now, how do we do a pop-up? Well, what we're going to do here, guess what, is leveraging containers again. So we go over to the tree menu over here on the left, the main screen for this view here. We're going to insert a container. It's going to be a vertical container, and we always want to follow best conventions and name things. So this is going to be container pop-up. Now you see how it's just kind of floating there. What we want to do is make it an X of 0, a Y of 0. So we're having it start at the top left. Our width, we're going to have be parent.width, IntelliSense is helping us, and height, parent.height. Now we only want this container to be visible when our var complete is set to true. So right now it's set to false. If we were to click on mark as complete, there we have it. Now it's showing with all of the content in here. So let's look at how we have this container built. So var, or the container pop-up, I have some background color in there. So if we expand this out, I have our RGBA, our main color, with a 0.6. So if we were to change this to a 1, it would be very dark, but you couldn't see anything behind it. I like to do a little bit of a transparency so you can still see what's behind it. And then within our container pop-up, I created another vertical container, and that's to aid with my layout. So if we look here, I have an icon called close. Again, best practice, name your variables, name your icons, name your text boxes, name everything, so it's easier for you to keep track of what's going on and your coworkers don't hate you. So if someone clicks this icon, they are setting var complete to false, which means all of this would disappear, and we're resetting, and if I click on it, you'll see it color codes, we're resetting this text box. We want it to be set to nothing at the end. Now the next thing here is our text. Are you ready to mark? And then I have the actual name of this item, the title, as complete. You want to give your end users as much information as they can. We're doing a lookup against the SharePoint list by the ID of this item's ID, and then we're grabbing the title and we're adding as complete. Look at my previous video how we set all of this up. Then we have a text box. And because we have the text box, I can have some hint text, and we have comments/notes. And then we have our 2 buttons. Now within for these 2 buttons to lay out properly, I'm leveraging a horizontal container. Now one of the things I want to touch on here is this container and this container. I like to use gaps on these. Now if I change this gap to 0, everything bumps right up against each other. But if I change the gap to 20, that gives us a little bit of padding, and we don't have to tell all of these items that I want you down 20, you down 20, you down 20 like we did with the button, because the container will do it all for us. I have some padding on the container just to make everything flow within it. We're doing the same thing on the button container. We have a gap of 20, and then at the top, I have a padding of 20. If I leave this, if I change that to 0, you can see how it bumps up. Keeping things consistent, I like 20, you use whatever you like, but try to be consistent. Now we have 2 more modern buttons. If we go to the insert, we have the modern button option here. And the great thing about modern buttons is if I scroll down, we have all these color palettes we can choose from. So not yet, I chose a red color palette just because I want to very clearly indicate that you are not marking this as complete yet. I could make it orange, I could make it gray, all sorts of different things. Microsoft and PowerApps is helping us do the work. We can be lazy IT people and leverage the tools at our disposal to do all of this. So we have a red container leveraging icons within it. And if I select on this, I'm going to move this up here a little bit. If we go to advanced, on my select of this, it's the same as the on select here. So I could change this right here to select this icon. Let's do that really quick. So this icon is called icon close. And if I click this button, I could have the same code in here, or I could do a select statement. Oops. Icon close. And so what that will do is when I click this button, the app will hit that icon for me, so I don't have to double up my work. Now let's look at the yes complete code. This is the money shot here, right? So we are doing a patch statement. That means we're going to go out to our record set, which in this case is SharePoint. You could be using Dataverse or whatever you like. And we're doing a lookup. I'm looking up against my data source the ID from this variable ID, this var this item.id. So what that means is I'm using ID because that's immutable, right? It's always going to be the same. It never changes. Once a record gets set, that's what the ID is. So I'm doing a lookup against my SharePoint list to get this record. And then in that record, I'm setting the status to complete. I am then setting the final status. We have another item in the SharePoint list called final status. We're capturing the user's full name. That's whoever's logged into the app. We're getting their full name. And then in quotes, we're doing an open paren. And then we're capturing the user's email address. That's because, again, there could be 4 John Does. I want to make sure that the John Doe that we're referencing here is the one that actually did the work. And then we're saying what they did. They marked this item as complete on, and we're doing a text on a now with a short date and time. And then if they put anything in the comments, we don't have the comments as required. We could, but we're not in this case. If there's nothing, if the comments field isn't blank, so that bang in front of it is blank is a not statement. So not if blank comments. So if there's comments, we're saying in the text field with the following comments, and we're adding the comments. If not, we're just ending the statement. Now on the patch itself, if there are errors, show us the error. If there are no errors, say, oh, this is successful, and then navigate to the main screen. We don't want them to navigate off this screen if there's an error. And then we're setting var complete to false, and we're setting this item to blank because we're going back to the main screen. We want to clear out the record set. So let's mark this as complete. So I'm going to play it and say yes, complete. And it bumps us back to the main screen. We have a success message. You see the status right here in the gallery changed to complete. Let's go look at this record. And here's our final status field. Stephanie Marshall, my email address, mark this item as complete with a short date and time with the following comments complete because I am not feeling creative. And the mark as complete button is gone. That's it. That's a simple patch statement leveraging mark as complete in the app. Let's look at the Teams notification next. Here we are in my Teams channel for the intranet submissions. So when we have multiple people in this group that are supposed to monitor for submissions to the intranet that have gone through the full approval process, and then the actual change has to be made. So this is the adaptive card that we have sitting here waiting for a response. We have some basic details. Corporate announcement, that's the title of the item, when it was created, and then again, a little bit more information, and then a view details button. This details button would take us with deep linking right into the app. You can look at my previous videos on deep linking. I'm not going to go into that now. Then from here, the people can mark it as complete. I have complete or not yet just because you want to give them options, but if they select complete, they have to give us comments, and then they mark it as complete. And when it's marked as complete, the actual adaptive card changes to this format so other people on the team know that the work has been done and they don't have to do anything. Now, if we look at this, this is leveraging Power Automate. And here we have our flow from the previous video. Here we have our Teams adaptive card. I'm going to show you how to build this, but I wanted to give you a quick peek at it. This is all the code in here. We're leveraging items from our SharePoint list. And then if the condition is equal to complete, then we're updating the item with the comments and the status. Let's build it together. Here we are at the Microsoft Adaptive Cards Designer. When you first open this up, it always comes to this screen. This is a demo card for the botnet framework web chat of a target version of 1.6. Now, instead of closing this, I'm going to duplicate it, and I'll show you why in a second, but we're going to go to New Card. Now you see here, you can explore, we can look at all these different options and different layouts. We're going to start with a blank card for today. First thing you want to do is change this to a Microsoft Teams, and at the time of this recording, 1.4 is the one that I've gotten to work consistently. So this may have changed at the time of the recording, but for right now, let's just do 1.4. So now we're going to slap in our text blocks, and we want 4 text blocks. They all look the same. You saw how I just clicked and dragged, but we're going to change this one to be a title. Now, if I scroll down here, we want the font type to be default, the size to be large, the weight I'm going to set to bolder, and the color set to good. Now we have a bunch of different options here. We could have it be accent, lights, dark. I like good just to give us some color. Orange is a little hard to read. Warning, not actually what we want to do here. The next one down is going to be who created this. So if I scroll back up, this is going to be created by. And this next one down, this is why I duplicated the tab. I really like the layout of this text or this formatting for the date time here. So if we scroll down in the code block, this is that bit of code right here. So I'm going to grab that, go back to my card, and select this text block, and I'm going to put in here created date in curly brackets. And the curly brackets with no spaces is just to make it easier for me to find later on. But now I've got that right here. I can come in here and paste it, one extra comma. So this is going to give me the format that I'm looking for in my adaptive card later on that's a prettier look and feel. It gives us the day of the week, the name of it, so like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, whatever. So that gives us a bit more content. Now here I'm going to do the brief description. Okay, so from our final team card, the next thing we had down here was a button to view the details. So what I'm going to do is add an action set within here. This is a container, and within that container, I'm going to open a URL. Now, when you are doing things, you have to add IDs to it. My convention per Rez's videos, because Rez is amazing at this stuff, is AC for adaptive card, and I'm going to have this be view details. And what we want to have happen on this is change the title to view details, and then URL here, I'm going to do URL. So that gives me the URL for it. Whoop, that's not what I wanted. I wanted the URL and the URL. So now as we scroll down, you see it added icon URL because I accidentally put something in there. We don't really need that, so I'm going to delete it. And then we have the URL that will be pulled up when you click this button. Now the next thing down was we wanted to do a choice. We wanted to say, is it complete or not? So I'm going to come over here to choice set and drag it in here. And we're going to, because it's something that is interactive, I'm going to add an ID. This is going to be complete. And best practice is to give it a label. Completed, yes. Yeah, I did have a D in there. We do not want to allow multiple selections. As we scroll down, we do want to make it required, and we do want to give it an error message. So the error message for this guy is going to be, decision is required. So if they don't give us something, we want to give them a feedback of to what they need to do. So completed and not yet. And we could have more options in here for your use case. You could have as many as you like. And let's see here. We don't want to do a separator. We don't want to allow multiple selections. I think that's it. Now the next thing from our card down is a comment section. So we want to have an input text here. Now AC comments. And we do want this to be multiple line. Let's give it a default value of comments. And we do want it to be required. And we want an error message here, comments are required. And I like to give an exclamation mark. And where's required? Okay, so we're good there. Now the last thing that we need to do, the very last thing on this adaptive card is submit. So if we come here to action submit, we need to give it an ID, action, AC adaptive card, submit. We want the title here to be marked as complete, and everything else is just fine. So now we can copy the card payload, and we need to go into Power Automate to add this to our flow. So here we are in Power Automate from our last video. I did change it from New Designer to Classic Designer just because it's easier for recording purposes to have everything in the line as opposed to the New Designer where stuff is off to the left and the middle. So we have all of our approval processes. Now we're going to do a new step. And as I scroll down, we're going to look for Teams Adaptive. And one of the options down here is going to be post an adaptive card and wait for a response. We want to get something back from the end users. So first thing I'm going to do here is to rename this. And I'm going to rename this to something short and simple. And that's because we need to get the comments back and we need to see what the code is for that. So when we're getting back the response from the end user, having this be a short name makes our code that we have to create later a lot easier to type. So I'm just going to call it Teams Cards with no spaces. It's going to be posted as a Flowbot into a channel. And then once you select that, it'll update and say, okay, which channel and which team. Now here is where we need to also change the update message. So we don't want it to be just thanks for your response. We want it to be flight deck updated. So we have something specific to this card, dated, and then we can paste in our payload. Get rid of that. Now here's all the code from the Adaptive Card Designer. Now we can go in and add our variables here. So we don't want that to be there. We want it to be title. And I like to go down to the bottom on these guys. When an item is created, there's the title. And here's that really pretty text or really pretty date format that we had before. Oh, and look at there, I have them backwards. This should be created and the one below it should be created date. So I'm just going to copy all of this and do created by display name. And then here, paste in that code, and we're going to change this to the curly bracket to created date. And then here's our brief. I'm going to grab this, delete the curly brackets, grab in the ID brief. Here is our view details, and this would be the link to the item with the deep linking code. Again, watch my deep linking video. For right now, I'm just going to put in here link to the item. Have to scroll down a little bit. Now here are our two input choices, complete, not yet. And here we have AC completed, true or false, and a decision required. And then as we scroll down here, here's our comments. So let's test this out really quick. I hit save and test, and now we can see we're waiting for our different steps to happen. So an email has been sent, and then we start and wait for an approval. So I'm going to open up my Teams. And Teams activity will tell me that an approval has been submitted. So I'm going to add my comments here. And again, this could be in your Outlook, right? We've looked at that before. This looks good. I'm going to approve it. And for testing purposes only, in this flow, I have everything going to me. So we wait for that to go through, condition HR approved. And go ahead with this one. Approve. Now this second one has gone through, and now this Teams card, post and wait for an adaptive card, is going to click off. Just waiting for it. I do believe this is it. Here we go. So holiday schedule. If we clicked on view details, it would take us out there. Placeholder text, I forgot to update the placeholder text. You would want to have something in there relevant. I'm going to say completed. I have comments, mark is complete. Now, if we go back to our flow, you'll see here it's completed. Now we ran that because we wanted to get this part of it here. We wanted to see AC comments, because once this is complete, then what are we going to do? Well, what we're going to do is click on edit, and we're going to scroll down and we're going to add a condition. And in this condition, we're going to say, we're going to add an expression in here. Click on choose a value, and we're going to add in body, and I'll put this code in the description down below. The body of the Teams card, that's the name of the card from above, right, that we renamed. Then we do a question mark, square brackets, a single tick, data, end tick, square brackets, question mark, and then the name that we got from the flow, the AC completed. Now if that equals to complete, so it's just waiting for this to equal complete, then we go into the if yes, we add an action. We're going to update the item. Now, if you had multiple items in here, right, or multiple options, you would do different things here, but this is just waiting for this to be marked as complete by the end users. So here we have the update item for this record, right? We have the ID in here, where it's tied to. Then if we scroll down, we're setting the status to complete, and we're putting the final status, the comments from the end users, into the final status, leveraging expression. And I'm gonna Control A, this is a neat little trick. If you Control A and copy, and you're not seeing anything, if you want to copy it, you can then paste it. You have to then remove the curly bracket at the end, and then the @ and the curly bracket at the beginning, but this is your code. You could put this into Notepad or whatever, but let's look at this again. We're getting the body from the Teams card. That's the name of this action up here that we've renamed Teams card. And we're grabbing the comments from their response and we're putting it into here. So if we go back to our Power App, here we are in our Power App. I'm going to filter by status, completed or complete, and then look at the one that we completed through Teams. There are our comments implemented. It's done. There's nothing else to do. Teams adaptive cards are a great option for getting input from multiple people. If you found this tutorial helpful, please give it a thumbs up and leave a comment below. Let us know your thoughts, questions, and any topics you'd like us to cover in future videos. Sharing is caring, so don't forget to share this tutorial with your fellow PowerApps enthusiasts. Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep rocking PowerApps like a true pro. See you in the next video.